All right, welcome to the Fantasy Wire HQ podcast. I am your host, Frank B. You can follow me on Twitter at FantasyWireHQ, online at FantasyWireHQ.com. Thank you for checking out today's episode, and please do me a favor, subscribe, leave it a review, share it, retweet it, all that good stuff. It takes a minute to do, and I really appreciate it. Now, during the season, we will have the Quick Cast, which is 30 minutes or less. It's a podcast that'll break down the game skid each NFL week from a fantasy perspective. This episode today and all episodes up until kickoff, if we have a kickoff, hopefully, are going to be long form interview podcasts or content specific features. So, okay, I'm done. Let's get to the business. Today, I've got a very special guest on the podcast. He is the developer and creator of NFL MockDraftDatabase.com. And while you're listening to the pod, go to the site, save it and bookmark it because you're going to love it. And you're going to need it. It's going to be really cool to follow along with when the NFL draft happens very, very soon here. So you can follow him on Twitter at NFL Mock Draft DB. He has been featured on Bleacher Report, SI, SB Nation, and Fansided. We welcome Denny to the podcast. I appreciate you coming on today. How we doing?
We're doing good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So what's going on in your neck of the woods? I don't want to get into a bunch of quarantine talk, but anything to kill the time here lately. I mean, I power washed my house the other day. I gave the power washer a full scouting report on Twitter. Just killing time and boredom, you know?
Yeah. I mean, tomorrow I can't wait. I'm going to be cleaning out my garage.
Yes.
It's really, really exciting. I'm going to be taking the snowblower out and running it and getting rid of the gas and everything.
Yep. Yeah, you got to do all that
typical homeowner stuff, you know?
Yeah, all the shit that we've put off and not done, it's time to do. It's time. Yep. You got weekends home, you're doing nothing. You got to knock it out. So good God.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's all I'm doing, man. And fantasy football stuff, NFL at least. I mean, there's a draft that's going to happen. It gives us some sense of normalcy, and I'm looking forward to that. And it's something to keep all of us from killing each other online, I guess you could say, too, with Twitter trolls and the stuff that goes on there. It's absolutely insane. It's like something's got to happen. We need sports, damn it.
Yep. Even with draft coming up, we're still killing ourselves because we're debating on which wide receiver is the fifth best or the 12th best, and you know, with such a deep class, it's crazy.
Yeah, this is going to be a good draft. I'm real interested to see how it goes down. But yeah, before we lead off any questions here, I ran a mock draft on your site, NFLMockDraftDatabase.com, for the Ravens and the Packers. Those are my two teams. I'm from Baltimore, so my heart and soul's with Baltimore at the Ravens, and I live in Wisconsin, so it's all about the Packers here, and I do love that team just as much. I've been here since '97, so it's impossible to live in a state with a team like this and not start coming around, you know, to like them and go. And I know you're in Chicago, so it's probably bear country down there, but yeah, so I did a Ravens and Packers mock draft on your site. I posted it on my Twitter feed. I linked everything through there. Anybody that wants to go on my site will link you right to yours, which is cool. So give it a look and let us know what you think. So onto the site. I mean, wow, man, you're going to love the site. It's clean. It's easy to use. You just can't beat it. So give me the rundown on your site for the people listening here to this podcast episode, NFL Mock Draft Database.com. What can a person expect when they log in, check it out for the first time? You know, how are we going to use it? What are some of the cool features? Because it's got a lot of stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah. So the main intention for the site was to just kind of host all the mock drafts that exist out there in a nicely clean, formatted way, and then kind of link back to the articles so that you can find them easily, rather than having to Google and find, you know, these articles yourself. Like, I've done the work for you. So all you have to do is just go to the site, you know, click on the mock. You'll see the entire list of the first round mock. And then from there, if you want to get an analysis, you could just move on to the article and kind of get the writer's spin on each pick. And kind of with that, when I was doing my searching, so I started the site last year. So 2019 was the first mock draft season that I had. And during my searching, I realized that there was a lot of articles about like team specific mock drafts. So like a Packers 7-round mock draft where they would just do, the Packers first round pick, the Packers second round pick, the Packers third round pick, etc. And so I'm like, there's a lot of these mocks. I'm like, I'm gonna do those too. So I started doing team mock drafts, and I have a list of team mock drafts. And then from there, I found big boards, player rankings, and then kind of also I ended up doing redrafts as well, because people love doing redrafts. And for me, I'm kind of a user of the site as well, and so I build stuff that I would want to see. I don't know how many times I've listened to, sports radio, and they talk about, especially in Bear Country, right? They're like, Mitchell Trubisky was, he wouldn't have gone 2 overall. And I'm like, pretty sure that, every single mock had him as like the top quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
But okay. But, so it's fun to kind of talk that way, but I want to have like the proof and the data. Another kind of thing around that was like the Mahomes thing, right? When Mahomes got drafted that year, the Chiefs traded up to get him, and Mahomes was not supposed to go when he went. I think he was supposed to be like a late first round pick.
Right.
So he was never in the equation for the Bears. It was Watson and Trubisky. So that kind of, all this stuff just kind of built up in my mind, and I'm like, I'm gonna build this out and make a cool database that has all the picks and everything. And so when I built this all out, I had so much data. I had all this data of like every single pick. I'm like, all right, well, what's like who's the most common player picked for the Bengals, which obviously we all know is Burrow, right? But now I have percentages, and like, I think it's like, what is it at 97% or something? Mock drafts are picking Burrow to go to the Bengals. So then I was able to kind of build like a consensus mock draft that, every team had a unique player. So you're like, okay, now you can kind of get a sense of like, where these players are going to end up. In this year's draft, we find a lot of with the Broncos that the most mocks are picking players for the Broncos that probably won't be there because other teams ahead of them are going to pick these guys. So they're kind of one of these teams that are in this weird, they don't know what they're going to do because they can go in so many different directions. I know a lot of people are picking wide receiver for them, but I think they're kind of in the realm of like whoever falls to them. And another thing that I kind of built out was the consensus big board, which there's so most people think that I just took all the big boards and made like kind of a consensus big board, but that's not true. What I did was I took all the mock drafts that I have and kind of use those to kind of rank the players in a smart way. So I've kind of built this truly unique big board that kind of shows the ebbs and flows of the mock draft world, where like, I think this week, Michael Pittman all of a sudden is like the top wide receiver in the league. I'm like, Michael Pittman. I'm like, I think he was pretty much like, no one was really talking about him, a few weeks ago, but all of a sudden he's like the hotness. So I fully expect him to climb in these mock drafts, in the coming week or so.
Right.
But yeah, and then the final big piece was the simulator that I had just recently built. And at the time when I built it, there was 2 on the market, and I built mine, in roughly about 3 weeks. Built it out and launched it. And it's been a huge success, and I'm really happy with it. And I've been getting a lot of feedback from people, and I appreciate that. And I'm pretty open and receptive to anything that people have. So, but yeah, my whole thing with that was keep it free. I'm a man of the people. I'm not going to charge you for this stuff, So
listen, I'm telling you, the best stuff that's out there, as far whether it's a podcast, a website, an app, any of that stuff, whoever is in the train of thought of saying, I want it to be what I want it to be, like I'm going to design, like you just said, I'm going to design it to be what I want that is cool. Those are the ones that you need to bookmark and save. Those are the ones that take off and do well, because it is what the people want. And it's not a bunch of suits in a boardroom going, this is what we're going to give the people, right? Mm-hmm. This is what we think is the best. And I guess if you're listening, fantasy football, in the fantasy football world, we love mock drafts. I love doing mock drafts about this time. I'll hop on Sleeper and I'll run a mock draft and see where these players are falling. The ADP, where these players are slotted and projected to go, it always changes, especially if you're on Twitter, social media. These players get amped up. A hype video shoots a guy's ADP up the roof, and you're like, how does he come up? He's not even going to go at this point, at this round in the draft. So it's always changing, and this is kind of taking the fantasy football mock draft and putting it into the real NFL mock draft. And like you were saying, that consensus big board, I really love that. And the simulator is insane. That's one of the best features on there, because now I'm a fan of the Ravens. I'm a fan of the Packers. I'm going to go on there and I'm going to pretend to be GM, and this is who I'm picking. And I know that when these other auto picks come up, I'm not picking for every team, which I can as an option. I'm going to only pick for mine. Those auto picks are kind of what may actually happen. It's pretty close. It seems like that's where all these picks are generally going. Guys are falling right now at the current moment. It does always change, but it's pretty neat to see. And even if you want to step back, I did a couple of the full mocks with a simulation on all the teams just to see where they all fall out a couple times. And the settings I really liked. Tell me about those settings real quick.
Yeah. So with a lot of those settings, I kind of, built my initial thought on, for example, like trading. So trading is free on the site. And I kind of built out a first iteration of what I thought trading should be and the values that I think, these trades should be. And I got a lot of feedback where it's like either trades were too hard to make or trades are too easy to make. And I'm like, I disagree. But if you want a different setting, I will give you a different setting. So I left it up to the users to decide what kind of setting they want to set. And I think we have like the setting that I think it should be, a setting that's a little more loose, and then free for all. So you want to trade the number one pick for the last pick of the draft, go for it. Like, it's your mock. I'm not going to restrict you, And so I think ever since I added those settings, a lot of that, feedback has kind of gone down, because now the users are able to determine how they want to mock.
Yes, it does have more options versus the competitors as far as what you want your mock draft to be. And I do, it's strict, relaxed, and free for all. And then I like the other type of draft you'd like to have, whether it's conservative, aggressive, or chaotic. So, I mean, that's awesome, right? What are you feeling like tonight? I feel like a chaotic draft. Let's run it and let's just hell break loose, because there's always, normally every draft, there's a monkey wrench. Every single draft, it always happens. It's moving along. Guys are falling pretty much where they're slotted, maybe a couple spots up or down. And then, boom, somebody trades up at, the Mitch Trubisky trade that year. Maybe it's, oh my God, there's always something, right? And then it comes off the rails and you don't know who's going where, who's moving this, who's trading back. And that's, I think for me, I have a big issue watching people do a mock draft and they go, okay, well, the Giants are going to leapfrog and trade with this team. How you can't even pick the players, for God's sake. How can you forecast a trade? So when I look at that and I see people say, I ran a mock draft and I planned on this trade with this team or this team, I like your site because I can select, do I want to trade? And I'm going to let it happen out of my hands. I'm not sitting back and saying, okay, well, I think the Giants would trade with Miami here. They would move back and make it my, you know what I mean? I'm going to let the computer simulate it to some kind of real life point, which may or may not happen, but at least it'd be kind of close to maybe how it really does play out. You never know with the trades, but the settings are really cool to tinker with. You get a lot of different results. And I think I did like 3 or 4 different ones on just the Packers with the different settings, different combinations of conservative and relaxed or chaotic and free for all. And it does give you a pretty different board as far as if you're trying to build for need or you're trying to build as a, best player available type strategy. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm really excited about doing. So if you go back and look at like the previous mock drafts from like 2019 and 2018, I have a mock draft that's the most accurate comparative to like the real world results. And so I was thinking, I'm like, well, wouldn't that be kind of cool if I do it for the user mocks and see like which user mock that I have out there is the most accurate. And it'd be kind of interesting to see like what setting they had it in. Were they in a chaotic setting? Were they, did they make trades? So, I have enough user mock drafts that I could probably, that someone might get really close. to being the most accurate. So I'm very interested to see that.
Definitely. Now, what is your background? I guess, how did we talked about it a little bit, but how'd you start up the site as far as, what you were doing with it, maybe some technical stuff on it? Because I thought the first thing that I noticed when I jumped on there was it was really easy to use, easy to navigate, and fast. Fast, which was awesome. So give me the rundown on that.
Yeah. So I've been watching the draft since I was like a kid. I remember like I'm that weird kid that like I'm like 10 and watching I'm spending all weekend watching the draft.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
It was awesome. I still get nostalgia, man, when I hear like the ESPN like music, the draft music. I'm like, oh, I get
a little
pumped up.
chime.
Yeah. It's good. Although back in those days they'd focus way too much on the first pick, and then I'd always miss the Bears pick at like 15, or they go to commercial or something. I'm like, come on, what is?
Yes.
I get really frustrated. But anyway, so I've always loved sports and definitely been a huge draft fan. And I'm also a software engineer, so I'm like, okay, well, I have skills that I can use to create something. I don't really need anyone else. I could just do it by myself. And I'd seen that there was other databases out there, online that, one of which was pretty popular, but the sites were always just slow, they were clunky, and there was just ads everywhere. And you're like, man, how do you even like navigate this site? And it was slow, like they weren't keeping up to date with everything, and it didn't look great. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm just gonna make a better version. And so I did. And my big focus with this was, like you mentioned, with site speed. I wanted the site to be as fast as possible. I never wanted you as a user to come on my site and be frustrated with how slow it was and then leave the site. You know what I mean?
Right.
So my big focus was getting that fast. And there was a lot of, technical techniques I could do to make that fast. The other big thing that I wanted to do was just kind of have quantity. I wanted you to never, if you ever wanted to find a mock draft, I never wanted you to Google something, because I already did the Googling for you. You come to my site and I'm your Google now. I'm your mock draft Google. Okay. find what you want on the site. And so that was my other intention, is just get everything on the site. The other thing was, a lot of these other databases, they were just kind of like showing like the first few picks. And I'm like, well, I want to see all the picks. I don't want to just see the 3 picks. I want to see all 32. So that was another thing that I wanted to focus on, was just getting just the first round. I know there's a lot of articles that are like the 3-round or 2-round mocks, but those were not as consistent. So the first round mocks are pretty consistent. So I was like, okay, that's a good thing. And yeah, just being able to update the site as much as I want, and I can kind of add features as quickly as I wanted to, and it's been a fun ride, and it's progressed a lot in a year. I started my first bit of code, I think it was February of last year, and it's a little over a year now, and the site has grown pretty big.
Yeah, no, it's great. And even just when you jump onto the first page, I mean, people, you'll get on and you'll see Sports Illustrated, you'll see Bleacher Report, Sporting News, right? And then you've got Maize and Brew, right? Well, who the hell is Maize and Brew? You got Fox News, you've got NFL.com, you've got Stampede Blue for the Colts, you've got zone coverage. So it is so thorough. It's got everybody, any outlet that you're wanting to check out and see what they've got going on. You can link, like you said, directly to it. You can see them all together. You've got the big names, the little names, the local guys. It's solid. It's solid. Everything you want is right there. Yeah. So I love it. Personally, for me, I love that consensus mock, and I love the team specific sections. Those are probably my two. The simulator, of course, but before we get into like the team specific pages, we'll role play here, right? Okay.
Okay.
You are the NFL GM, so give me the rundown kind of on how you would set up your war room if you were running the show. I mean, you've created the draft, the mock draft simulator and everything here. So what's personally your draft philosophy, team philosophy, rankings, construction, because we all like to fantasize about, man, if I was running the Bears, it wouldn't be it wouldn't be that, or it would be this. I'd get this guy. This would be my strategy. So I'm just curious to pick your brain. How do you roll with that?
Absolutely. So for me, like there's two different things, right? Like I get infatuated with the skill positions too, right? Like CeeDee Lamb is like one of my favorite players in this draft,
yes.
and I can't wait until fantasy. I know I can't wait until fantasy. I'm going to draft him. I've already like traded so I'm in a keeper league, so I've already like traded a bunch of players to get like first round picks because I love this draft class.
Yeah.
But so I get really they're the sexy pick, but that's fantasy. For me, if I was really an NFL GM, I'd be building from the line. You have to have a strong offensive line and a defensive line because everything else will just work with that. If you draft a QB with no line, you're going to end up with a David Carr situation where poor guy is getting killed out there and he doesn't really ever get a chance to show himself because he's just getting sacked. And it just helps everything. It helps the quarterback. It helps the running game. With the defense, it helps the cornerbacks because the pass rush will be able to make the quarterbacks go nuts, and they'll throw in accurate passes, and then just everything will be better once you build from the line.
Yeah, you're speaking my language because that's what I'm all about. Is you build the trenches, everything else can follow, and it just dominoes off of that. Because if you've got the line play that holds up, I mean, you don't need elite corners in the backfield. If you got a defensive line that's given the quarterback 2 seconds to throw, 3 seconds to throw. I mean, he's already got that at most times anyway, but when the pressure's there, the mistakes happen when the pocket crumbles, so I'm with you there 100%.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I think kind of just being born in Chicago and being raised here, it's like, we don't have a quarterback. We don't know what a quarterback looks like. So to us, it's defense and, a strong running game. And I'm hoping the Bears are smart this year and they do something with the offensive line to kind of solidify that. But knowing our GM, he's going to trade up and get a wide receiver or something. So. Oh
boy. Yeah. What do you think of Foles? Is it going to be a Foles and Trubisky quarterback competition?
Listen, I did not want Foles at all.
That was surprising.
He's like the one quarterback I did not want. And then the fact that they gave up a 4th round pick for him too. I'm like, what are you doing? I was so mad. I was like physically upset that they did that. Now, granted, Foles might turn out okay, but I mean, if you look back at his like stats, he had one great run with the Eagles in the playoffs. Yeah. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're looking, he's got a lot to prove as far as flaming out in Jacksonville, and that was kind of a raw deal. So, I mean, he's got a fresh start. He's got the Vikings, who just got depleted in the secondary. Mm-hmm. I would imagine anybody facing the Vikings this year, it's going to be bombs away. And it as long as he stays healthy and holds off Trubisky, he ought to be fine. But like you said, giving up the 4th round pick, when I saw that, what do you guys do? Maybe a 5th or something, but a 4th round, I mean, you can build a lot in those rounds, those 3rd, 4th rounds. You get a lot of good tackles and trench guys in those rounds a lot of times. And I was really surprised. And then the Jimmy Graham really made me do a triple take when I saw that.
And like no trade clause too. Look at that.
Yeah, and I guess that's the Pace connection, right?
I think so. I guess. I mean, the thing in Chicago is like they're talking that have the Bears improved? Yes. I mean, they got a better tight end, I guess. They got a better quarterback, but the increase in talent is not as expected, right? So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and then what did they do on defense? They added. I thought the defense. Who did they acquire? I cannot remember. Having a brain fart. Quinn, yes, from the Cowboys, right?
Yeah, but then they lost Leonard Floyd. So yeah, I mean, Quinn is better than Floyd, but I mean, we'll see. I don't really have high hopes for the Bears.
Oh boy, yeah. And then I guess my next question here: who are some rookies that you have your eye on this season? We talked about CeeDee Lamb, and just you kind of expect them maybe to excel in the league any busts or risk players, I guess, in your opinion, for this draft class?
So I don't know. This wide receiving class has got me so excited. There's so many great players in this class. I don't know if there's anything, if there's ever been as deep of a class as this one, but I mean, Lamb and Judy are going to be studs. They just are. Judy, just by default being an Alabama wide receiver, like, has there been a bust first round Alabama wide receiver in recent history?
Not really.
Right.
They're solid.
They're solid players. And, Lamb is kind of like that other, every year there's like a guy from a school that normally doesn't have, a top player, but they do this year. And I think Lamb kind of fits that mold of like the top wide receiver. I mean, last year Oklahoma had like Marquise Brown, but Lamb is like a wide receiver one, a true wide receiver one. So those two are going to be awesome. And then I'm really excited about Justin Jefferson. I think he's going to be great too. He's kind of also like in that LSU wide receiver where they don't really flame out either. Personally, for like fantasy purposes, I'm going to be targeting Lamb, Judy, and Jefferson. Running backs are kind of like just wherever they fall, whatever team they get drafted by. There's Swift at the top and
Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor, who I like a lot too. But we'll just see where they end up.
I'd love to see, because if you think back, like, remember when wide receivers were not going in those early high rounds because they were all crazy divas, they were just nightmares to handle, and they'd flame out or they wouldn't get on the field. And then for a while, I just remember where teams were staying away from wide receivers first round, no matter what. And it was either tackles, backs, maybe a tight end sprinkled in there, quarterbacks, obviously. But and now it's almost the opposite way, where the wide receivers are coming on strong. They're coming out of college and playing right away. And now the running backs are going by the wayside because, hey, I can flip running backs mid-season anywhere, pick a street free agent, whatever, plug a guy, old face, new place, new team kind of thing. And the backs are starting to slide. But I think for what I would like to see, I don't think it's going to happen in the draft, but I would love to see the Packers grab Jonathan Taylor, homegrown talent, because Aaron Jones, everybody would go, well, why would you do that? You've got Aaron Jones, but he's going to be on a contract here, right? Packers, are they going to pay up for him in the backfield? I don't think so. So if you plugged in Taylor out of the draft, that would be a great Rodgers backfield. I mean, Rodgers, Taylor in the backfield, Adams, you got to get a receiver, but the draft is deep enough that you can grab one later. So I think that would throw a big monkey wrench, like we were talking earlier, into the draft, and I would love to see how everything falls after that. That would be pretty interesting.
I mean, it's really not that crazy of an idea. I mean, teams need two backs, right? I mean, the Titans did it with one, but Derrick Henry's a beast. You can't really stop him, but it's not that crazy of an idea. I mean, would you pair Aaron Jones? I mean, minus last year, what did Aaron Jones really do?
Yeah, nothing. He was in McCarthy's doghouse forever, and then he got hurt a couple times. So, I mean, it's hard to see that they pay up. They typically don't on backs and stuff like that, but who knows? It would be pretty interesting. And then busts. What do you do for busts this season? Anybody you're looking there, or how do you kind of check those guys out?
One guy that scares me, and I don't know why, but he scares me, and it's Jordan Love. I don't know if it's just like the hype is getting crazy, or
I think it is.
It's insane. They're talking like he could be like the number 2 quarterback. I'm like, stop it, like stop it now, guys. Like, Burrow's won. I don't even know if Burrow's won. Like, Burrow had a great year. Don't get me wrong. But Tua's still there, and Justin Herbert. Those are 3 stud quarterbacks that all were at one point the number 1 overall pick, right, in mock drafts. And now Jordan Love comes out of nowhere, small school. Not to say that he couldn't excel, but I'm worried that he's going to climb so high that the expectations are going to be so high for him that he's not even going to ever be able to like live up to that, and that's just
Right.
unfair. But who knows? I mean, kid might be great, and we'll see. I think he might be one of those, like, you gotta fall in the right situation.
Right. My other favorite area of the site, without a doubt, is the team-specific pages. I ran that Ravens draft team-specific. I ran the Packers team-specific. But let our listeners know how you kind of constructed that page. So if they're going to jump on, and let's say they're not too concerned with a full NFL all 32 team mock draft, they just want to do their favorite specific team, just kind of how you constructed that page, how it works, kind of how fun it's going to be to follow along with it during this year's NFL draft.
Yeah, so the team I'll use as an example is the Dolphins, because they have multiple first round picks. And when you go to the page, you'll immediately be kind of shown this pretty looking bar graph, and it'll show the player that the team is going to pick at that slot. So, for example, the Dolphins have the 5th pick, and most mocks have Tua going to the Dolphins at 5. And so you can see on the page, it'll be like, okay, Tua's the most common player, and it'll be a percentage based. So you'll see 65% of the mocks have Tua going 5, and then 23 have Justin Herbert, and then 2.2% have Jeffrey Okudah going to the Dolphins at 5. And it was kind of a fun little thing to see these percentages, because you're always curious, like, all right, well, this mock has Tua going to the Dolphins. What does this mock have? This one has Justin Herbert. Okay, well, which one should I trust? So it's more like just curiosity. Like, you can see these percentages, and funny enough, like, as you get further down the mock, they become less and less common. So like Joe Burrow, for example, is 97% to the Bengals, and then I think like the 32nd pick is like 10%. Because there's just so much variation that it's hard for mocks to stay consistent.
Right.
And so I also wanted to kind of show the actual mock drafts that are picking that player. So it'll show like the first 10 most recent mock drafts that have Tua going to the Dolphins at 5, as an example. And it'll show all picks of that team. And then at the bottom of the page, because I've already been adding all these team-based mock drafts, these 7-round mock drafts, 5-round mock drafts, whatever. I was like, well, I already have all the Dolphins, mock drafts. I'll just display them on the team page. So now, not only do you get the first round kind of consensus analysis, figuring out like where those players are going, but you also get all the Dolphins mock drafts. So, for me as a Bears fan, I like to see kind of like the local spin. It's fun to see like the national spin, but the locals really know what the team is going to be doing, right? So, for the Dolphins, you'll have a lot of these local, experts that really know the ins and outs of what the Dolphins are thinking and what the front office is thinking and all that stuff. So you might get a little bit more of an accurate vibe. And I personally like going to those kind of outlets. So you can get a list of all of those on those pages as well.
Yeah, I always say that too for fantasy. You look at these players and national media will give a rundown on what they think player A is going to do for the real life NFL season, how it equates to fantasy. But I always say, like you said, go to your local media outlets. Some of these guys, they're hacks. Some of them are just idiots. Some of them are homers, but they've got the pulse of the team, right? I mean, if I'm trying to check out somebody on the Colts, I'm going to jump into some like local Colts coverage, beat writers or something, and kind of see where that 3rd, 4th wide receiver is shaking out and how I can apply that to my fantasy team. And somebody may laugh at my pick for, Marcus Johnson, whoever. And I've done a little bit of research to at least know that this guy does have a good opportunity to move up, or he's got maybe the other way. He's not even going to crack the team this year. Somebody else picks him. But yeah, the local stuff, that's where I put my money a lot.
Yeah. I remember the one year, who was the tight end on the Packers that fumbled the like onside kick?
Bostic.
Yeah. Brandon Bostic, right?
I think so. Yeah. I've already forgotten his name.
So I think at his year, he was like, everyone was kind of saying like, oh, he's going to be the Gronk. He's going to be great. And I remember keeping him. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. The locals love him. Okay, cool. And then the fumble happened, and his career was over.
Yeah, everybody really wanted him to kind of take the reins and be the next Jermichael Finley, because locally I know that everybody's just clamoring for that tight end position to reemerge on the Packers offense, and it hasn't since Jermichael Finley. He was the last guy that was like a solid threat, splitting coverage, seams down the middle. I mean, he was a beast, right? And then he got hurt. They've never really filled his spot. And originally, when they took Jimmy Graham, I thought that Graham was going to be the guy, because I kept saying, hey, he's a big target. He's huge. He cannot run like he used to. That's fine. But the Packers could kind of treat him like a hired gun, and he doesn't have to do that. He can just catch jump balls and fades in the end zone. I mean, he's a red zone play, total threat machine, in my opinion. They never used him like that. And then now he's in Chicago. Who knows? Maybe it turns out the same way. Maybe they use him. But it's like, if they would just use that guy in designed plays within the 20, whether it's a fade, just something quick. I mean, he could get open. He's just so big. He's 6'7". I went to the training camp and saw him, and he's bigger in real life. I mean, when you see him than on the TV. On the TV, you see him, and he's like, yeah, it's a big guy. But when you see him in real life, you're like, damn, oh my God, you're standing like, because you can go pretty close to the field up there, and I couldn't believe how big that guy was. And it's like, geez, I couldn't imagine trying to box him out. He'd throw your ass on the ground. So yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. And like I said, the Packers have not filled that tight end position since Finley. So it's, some of the guys get it wrong. Some of them got the little, their own little agendas they want to shoot players up the depth chart with, but it doesn't always work out.
But that's why, like, I don't know if Rodgers just doesn't like tight ends, but, there's been this kind of push with the Packers, with the mock drafts, mocking Cole Kmet from
I've seen
Notre
that.
Dame. Yeah, to the Packers. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I just don't. The Packers kind of just don't really. I see more of like a Chase Claypool, or
I would like that guy. I like that guy.
I mean, he's already kind of like a tight end, anyways. So if you could throw him out on the outside and more of a jump ball receiver to kind of complement Adams, or like a Michael Pittman or something,
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I could see that more than like a tight end. I don't think Rodgers is a fan. He doesn't really utilize the tight end as well as we want him to use the tight end.
Yeah, it's just not part of the offense for whatever reason. And I would imagine, like you said, if they let's say they took a receiver first round and then picked up Claypool later, I think Claypool's a guy that you could use him as a wide receiver, like you said. You could use him as a tight end, and he could be an interchangeable piece on the offense for them and do some damage, create some mismatches. I would love to see that. And then they don't have to burn a high pick on a tight end, Cole Kmet, whoever it may be, and maybe he doesn't turn out. I mean, because the tight end class isn't the greatest. They've all got a little plus and minus, I guess, to their game. There's no clear-cut guy in that group that you look at are like, damn, this is a George Kittle type, or this is a Travis Kelce type. There's really none in this year's class. So
right, yep. I mean, there's that tight end from Dayton. He's slipping my name right now, but
Troutman, I think it was.
Yeah, Adam Troutman.
Yeah, he seems to be the complete guy, as close as you can get, in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he just seems like such a Bears tight end, and that's probably because we wasted a second round pick on, what's his name? I forget the guy's name, but the bust out, the flame out tight end.
Shaheen,
no. There you go.
Was it? Yeah,
Shaheen. Yeah. So we'll see what they end up doing with that. But
so now I'm assuming the Bears are your favorite team.
They are.
Okay.
How could you tell? How could you tell?
You never know. Just make sure. So like now, if you're the GM, put on your GM cap, head scout cap, whatever. You're running their draft. How are you constructing the 2020 team?
Yeah. So the Bears kind of brought themselves into the situation that they're in this year. With the Foles trade didn't help, losing that 4th round pick. But they do have 2 second round picks. So
right.
my first strategy, especially like in the simulator, I always trade down. You got to pick up more picks.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably keep one of the 2 second round picks. You don't want to trade down both of them. You can, but personally, I'd keep one, trade the other one, get some, third, fourth round picks, whatever you need. Because the problem is with their last second round pick and their next pick, which is a 5th rounder, there's 114 picks between the 2.
Whoa. Yeah.
So if you want to feel the pain, you should go to the simulator, pick the Bears, and do like normal speed, because I have speed settings, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I always do fast speed because I'm like, I just want to go through this thing.
Right.
But
Yeah.
You want to feel the pain, go to normal and just let it auto pick until the 5th round pick. And you'll just see just how many players are coming off the board. You can watch them come off the board if you set your overall player rankings. You're like, I hope he drops. No, he didn't drop. Shoot. What about this?
Yeah, that's scary.
It's brutal. God. It's brutal. So they gotta do something. They gotta recoup some picks, and they gotta trade down.
Yeah, that would make sense. I mean, you got to get rid of, you deal one of those second rounders, and you ought to get something to fall back into the third or somewhere, right? I mean, 114 picks. Geez, that's crazy. Yeah. That's insane. Rough. That's heartbreaking too as a fan to sit, like you said, and watch all those names off the board, and you're nope.
Yep.
Nope. And you settle for 114 later. Good God. Yep. So yeah, we talked about at the top of the show here, every year the draft is rolling along. Then all of a sudden you get the monkey wrench, the record scratch, big trade, whether it's, up or back, that alters the course of everything. The route is steered. Things go crazy. So doing these simulators that, we talked about that chaotic setting and things that can happen. But in your opinion, what team, or maybe possible reason for the move could be the first one to start that scenario off this year? It's hard for me to kind of think of anybody. I think somebody's going to leapfrog for a quarterback, and there's too many teams that need one so bad, and the desperation is there. I think to a degree, if you look at the Redskins, you look at the Dolphins, even the Lions, I mean, somebody could make a big early move and just jack up this whole draft, as far as players falling. But what do you think the scenario, how that goes off this year?
Yeah, so there's a multiple scenarios. I think the first one is it lies with the Bengals, right? Apparently they're still listening to offers for the number 1 pick, which is crazy. But if for whatever reason they trade the pick, it's going to obviously destroy the entire draft, and every mock draft is going to be completely wrong at that point. But I think the Lions probably are going to be the ones that will trade out, and it's going to be whatever team feels like their quarterback, they want to get their quarterback, and it's going to be between Tua or Justin Herbert. These teams fall in love with the quarterback, and they're always worried that the team behind them is going to take them, or the team in front of them is going to take that player that they want. So they're gonna move up and get some capital, and that probably will be the Dolphins that will move up to make sure that they get the guy that they want, which is probably going to be Tua. But who knows? Maybe the Chargers move up to get Tua ahead of the Dolphins, and the Dolphins are kind of like left with Herbert. But hey, it's not a bad consolation prize.
No,
Justin Herbert. So those 3 are going to be great, and then Jordan Love. Maybe the Buccaneers trade up. Because Brady's not a young chicken, spring chicken. So, I think he signed a 2-year contract, but, the Buccaneers need to find their next quarterback to build around after Brady leaves. So they could potentially, take a quarterback as well, but we'll see. I don't think I've seen many mocks, having the Buccaneers doing that, but that was just kind of like my own instinctual thinking.
Yeah, that could definitely. I think with the Bucs, you're going to get Brady for a couple seasons, and from there, it's kind of up in the air with, is he going to be good? Is he going to be able? I don't know. You got to do something. The Bucs can't play this Brady game and then go back to nothing. So they're going to, if they're smart, they're going to have to make a move this season or next season on a quarterback, whether it's this year in the draft or it's a free agent next year. That somehow they can't go back into the sewer when Brady's done, right? Or play the retirement game with him either. Is it going to be a Brett Favre style retirement? Brady, is he going to retire this year? Is he going to play? Is this going to be the fourth? they're not going to deal with that. So I mean, yeah, Miami trading up to take Tua, I do see that too. I mean, that he's long been rumored to be their guy, and they could jack everything up. The Redskins could redskin and do their thing.
and take Tua.
You never know. I mean, it's insane. I think they are pretty locked on Chase Young, right? I mean, it seems like that. It's kind of the don't think, don't blink pick, and they'd be fools, I think, to pass him up.
Listen, like so the Cardinals did it last year too, right? They took Rosen the year before, 10th overall. Now, granted, Rosen, I don't even think the kid got a fair shot, but for the Cardinals to take Kyler Murray over Nick Bosa, I think it was insane. I was like, what are you doing? Like, Nick Bosa's a stud defensive end. What are you thinking? And Chase Young is that same mold, right? The stud, like top defensive end. Just he's plug and play. Boom. Who knows? The Redskins might pull a Cardinals and take a quarterback, a year after just taking a quarterback the year before. So it's crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be insane. So speaking of crazy, we're not going to go we won't do anything crazy, nothing crazy, just a random one. The last question I'll give you, just a random one here. I'll give you a slow pitch softball, man. Just give me your Super Bowl prediction. I love Super Bowl predictions early. My brother and I do them, and we like to make fun of each other. And even it's just funny to go back and be like, why would I have picked that? At the end of the season and be like, oh, well, how the hell? And I think this past season, I picked the Saints and Colts. This year, I don't know. It's tough. I thought about it a little. I got to say Ravens and probably Saints. I got to see the Saints getting in there. They've come so close so many times, and the body of work, they can't just keep getting screwed out of these playoff games, right? Or just screwing something up at the last minute. They're going to have to get over the hump. And I think maybe it's this year somehow.
So obviously we can eliminate some teams. We can, there's obviously the top teams in the draft are probably not going to be there. The Patriots are probably not going to be there anymore. The Buccaneers will be better, but they probably won't be there. I do like the Saints. That's a good pick. Man, who would be in there? See, like the Vikings are good. They're a good team, and they have 2 first-round picks. So it's like they could just build upon their team. AFC, I'm not a huge Niners fan for the NFC as well. I think they're going to regress.
What do you think of the Bills?
Dude, the Bills. The Bills.
I think the Bills could be. I mean, everybody's saying. I think with the Patriots, everybody's either saying they're going to fall off and they're done, or they're staying on top and nothing changes. Well, it's not one extreme or the other. I don't really think it is. I think they're going to slide, but I think this is the year the Bills sneak up, steal the division, and I don't think the Patriots are going down, cellar dwellers, but they're not going to be first place with a bow anymore either. So I think it's going to be a dogfight for that AFC East at the end, and I think the Bills could steal it. And I think their defense is good. They got Diggs now on offense, so they do have some threat. John Brown and Josh Allen, if he gets a pocket presence this year and develops, holy crap! I mean, he can be really dangerous.
Are you talking about NFL MVP Josh Allen? Is that who you're talking about?
And MVP?
Oh yeah.
You think so?
Yes.
He's dangerous, man. He's dangerous. I liked what I saw from him this past year. It was just if kind of like Lamar in that first year. If it's like, man, if this guy could just sit and throw, go through progressions, and he could be dangerous, and I think he can get it done. Why not?
He's going to win people fantasy championships this year. He's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in fantasy for sure. Now that when you're a top quarterback in fantasy probably translates to success in the NFL, but we'll see. I really like that pick. So I'll go Bills Saints. I'll go Bills Saints.
Saints and Bills.
That's what I'm going with.
Okay. Yeah, we'll revisit this and have a good laugh because it always shakes out to be off. But yeah, even with the playoffs, it's like I think they say 4 or 5 teams every year are eliminated out of the playoffs from the previous year. So if you remember the old school magnet boards with the helmets?
Yes.
All the divisions. I got that in my basement My brother has it as well, and we're always checking that out and setting our magnet board. It's our big board. And I look at that and I pull off 4 teams from each side. That's kind of crazy because some of those, when you pull, 2 and 2 are pretty easy, but then the last one, you're kind of like, I'm having a hard time moving this team out of the playoffs completely, but it happens every single season. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild. So it'll be a fun ride.
Yes.
If it happens this year. If a season actually happens.
I think it will. I think it will.
Yeah, but I wanted to give you a little teaser on a potential feature for the site.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, breaking news. You heard it here first.
Yes. So the thing I'm working on right now is a multi-year simulator. So right now you can only simulate the 2020 mock draft, right? But I'm going to allow you to pick what year you want. So you can choose to go back and rerun the 2019 if you want. You can do the 2020 or you can do the 2021 simulator. So as soon as the draft is over, you'll be able to immediately jump into a 2021 simulation and start playing around and mess around. So
and the 2021 classes will be locked and loaded in there?
It'll be locked and loaded. You'll probably only be able to do the first round because not a ton of data yet on those mocks, but yeah, it'll be fun.
That's good. That's nice. Cause even within like a week or two after the draft, every season, there's always a 20, the next 2021 draft will be online and somebody will have a full first round of slotted guys and who's coming out and who's not, who's going to be the top 5 off the board. And yeah, that's good. That's excellent.
Those are fun to look back at for the 2020 year and just see just how crazily wrong they are. And that's probably why they call them the way too early mock drafts. So.
It's the same as the fantasy stuff too. There's so many way too early prediction pieces and things, and it's hard to tell, especially fantasy wise, who's going to do what year to year, because the parity in the NFL real life is even more amplified in the fantasy landscape. So it's you're really dart throwing to try to pick guys there as far as fantasy bust, fantasy stud, dud. There's always the off-season articles like that. So like they crack me up as well.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, that's going to wrap up today's podcast. And again, I really appreciate everyone listening, checking out the episode here. Subscribe, follow, and we're going to have a lot more quality content coming throughout the off-season and throughout the NFL season. So before I let you go, Denny, let the people know where they can find you. Give me a couple plugs where they can find you on Twitter and the website and everything here. What you got going on?
Yeah, so the site is called NFL Mock Draft Database. It's NFLMockDraftDatabase.com. You can find me on Twitter at NFL Mock Draft DB. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it, and you can always, send me a DM on Twitter. I'm responsive, and you'll get me. I'm a one-man show over here.
Awesome.
So it's fun.
Yep. Follow, bookmark the website, and make sure you have that open during the NFL draft coming up here. I'm going to have that on my laptop. To my one side, I'm going to follow along and see where they come off the board. I'm going to run a couple mocks. I'll probably have them. You can save them, which I do like. I'm going to save a couple and open them up and just see how the real draft plays out to how I picked along prior and see how it shakes down.
Yeah, that'll be fun to do as well.
All right. Well, we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Until then, stay safe. Be good.
Yeah, all right. This press conference is over.
Go away.
No, it's over, Phil.
Well, please,
it's over.